There's no doubt about it. There are few things in gaming history that have been as influential as The Legend of Zelda for the NES, and Eiji Aonuma and his team at Nintendo EAD3 are well aware of this. In hindsight, it comes as no surprise that series producer Mr. Eiji Aonuma, during the Nintendo Direct in January 2013, announced that the next Zelda game for the Wii U would rethink established conventions such as completing dungeons in a set order or playing by yourself. This was followed up in 2014 during Nintendo's E3 digital event, where Aonuma admitted that
last year I said that I would revisit the norms of the Zelda series and make that a theme for the new Zelda game for Wii U. This is something we had to realise and wanted to do for a long time. In the early releases of the Legend of Zelda games, players got to explore a wide area scrolling up, down, left and right. But with the transition to 3D, it became harder to replicate that feeling of being in a vast world where everything felt connected. In other words, one of the most important ambitions for Zelda Wii U, influenced from the original Legend of Zelda, is to give complete freedom back to the player in what seems to be a vast, boundless and seamless world. This is rather obvious, but it does beg the question, is Zelda Wii U truly a new installment to the series or just a reimagining of the NES classic 30 years after its initial release? And what is this twist to the open world formula which Eiji Aonuma has been hinting to the last few weeks? Let's find out.
a giant red alert about a possible connection apart from the obvious Game Awards recreation of the famous Death Mountain scene was the gamepad map. Just look at it. The entire southern section of the overworld is close to identical to the one found in The Legend of Zelda. It appears that all the most notable locations, such as the lengthy coastline to the south and east, the eastern woods, Lost Woods, the central lake, the southern mountains, Spectacle Rock, even the old Gambler's Den have all been implemented into the game map. Coincidence? I don't think so. As noted by Scriptendo, the gamepad map is indeed a map to the past, but is this just a homage or a sign of a return to the free explorative setting found in the original title, where nothing was given in advance and you could do exactly what you wanted, go up, down, left and right, and traverse any corner or borderlands with a total absence of linearity. Based on the recent statements from Eiji Aonuma, it could be that the world of Zelda Wii U will mark for an expansion of this idea of a seamless and open world. This might as well be the reason why a large section of the overworld from the first game can be found in Zelda Wii U.
Moreover, we believe that the 30th anniversary in the release year of Zelda U and the fact that this area would mark for a perfect nostalgia bomb could impact this to be our starting point in the game, marking for a return to the series' cradle, back to where it all began. On top of it, you have the world size. The vast and fully open world from the start of The Legend of Zelda was way ahead of its time, the competition, and even later entries in the franchise, forcing us to wait another 30 years until we will most likely return to this concept of being handed complete freedom from the start in a vast, dense and gorgeous world with an abundance of transport options. In 1986, you had the raft to traverse water sections and the flute to efficiently warp from dungeon to dungeon. Perhaps Zelda Wii U with a lengthy coastline and sea sections could bring back the raft or similar sailboat to explore the open sea and its islands, and for warping across this massive landscape, why not bring back the iconic flute?
One of the most annoying elements in the recent console Zelda games is the tedious, time-consuming and downright off-putting prologue or tutorial sections. And believe me, we need to go so far back as Wind Waker in 2003 to find the last 3D Zelda where you did not have to play for 2 or 3 hours until you reached the first dungeon. Yes, I'm speaking about the notorious opening hours of Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Twilight Princess in particular must have one of the worst first 2 hours in any game. We had to perform mandatory, annoying tasks such as fishing and bringing in cats, use a falcon to take back a basket with a child from an angry monkey. What? Learn how to use the slingshot, learn how to use the wooden sword, go and save the children and monkeys after being kidnapped by bokoblins, keeping goats from running away from the Ordon Ranch, learn how to ride a pony by herding Ordon goats, spend half an hour to 1 hour as Wolf Link in Hyrule covered in twilight, meeting Zelda, returning back to Ordon Village to search after the Ordon sword and shield, hunting bugs to refill the vessel of Faron, obtain the hero's tunic, meet the hero's shade for the first time, and first then you could enter the first dungeon, the Forest Temple. Let me sum up this tutorial with one word. Bullshit.
What Conrad is trying to say is that this trend of pointless forced tutorials must come to an end in Zelda Wii U, and what source would serve for a better inspiration than the quick start found in the original Legend of Zelda on the NES, where it took you mere seconds from when you pressed the start button until you were completely free to do whatever you desired, go out and explore, discover secrets and traverse demanding but fair dungeons. There was no forced tutorial to endure through, and though you were dropped next to an obvious starting point, the cave, it was completely up to you whether you decided to enter it and receive the wooden sword from the old man or not. Zelda Wii U should be no different. After a brief introduction cutscene, you should be dropped somewhere in the southeastern section of Hyrule with Epona and be fully free to explore and immerse yourself into the giant and seamless open world of Zelda Wii U, doing whatever you want and going wherever you want. If you want to cut some grass, you should be able to do so. If you want to slay some monsters, go ahead. If you want to go to Hyrule Castle and do some side quests, then you should be free to do this. And of course, you should be free to follow the main quest and enter some dungeons. It speaks for itself. Grant an unprecedented level of freedom not seen since the first Zelda game. Trust us. The tutorial section will do just fine as a separate exercise mode in the main menu of the game. The last thing we need is another forced, non-skippable 2-hour tutorial session as part of your main quest. Instead, you should spend this time on discovering in-game secrets and mysteries.
No installment in the series was as cryptic and filled to the brim with in-game secrets as the original Zelda. This game influenced the treasure hunt after the highly valued pieces of hearts, which have been present in some form in all subsequent titles. The same goes with other treasure guarded by characters who have become icons due to their one-liners. It is dangerous to go alone. Take this. It is a secret to everybody. The Dongo dislikes smoke. Grumble grumble. And finally, the unquestionable winner from the sequel, I Am Era. The first Zelda game had an unmatched sense of discovery, but let us be honest, Zelda Wii U should not be as cryptic as the original Legend of Zelda, but it will not hurt to take some inspiration from the concept in such a vast, seamless world where unexpected in-game events should be mandatory and triggered when reaching a specific area at a given time. I really hope that Nintendo EAD3 will create some truly memorable characters for this game that could develop across the multitude of side quests that have been hinted to be included in the game by series creator Shigeru Miyamoto.
We will have to wait and see, but it would be fascinating if the entire southeastern area will be a 30th anniversary nostalgia bomb recreated in 3D. Anyway, the most important thing now to Nintendo is to not spoil the surprise or mystery surrounding these places. And speaking about places, on the gamepad map during last year's Game Awards presentation, we could see icons and specific objects, which implied that this area, unlike the original Zelda game, will consist of settlements and villages, and even harbours near the coastline, which might indicate the presence of boats and ships in the game. Perhaps some of the memorable characters from Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 could be found here, or it could just be an homage and nothing else. The original Legend of Zelda had some of the most unique dungeon layouts where each of them depicted an animal or a symbol. Who can forget the eagle, the snake, or dare I say, the controversial swastika? But at the same time, there was more to the dungeons, as there was no forced or linear chronology to them. From what we've heard from Eiji Aonuma and Shigeru Miyamoto in Zelda U, they want to break this convention of completing dungeons in a set order, and while the rental system found in A Link Between Worlds was a step in the right direction, it's possible that Zelda Wii U will take it a step further by not dividing between the early and later dungeons and make all of them accessible from the beginning of the game.
This switched approach will obviously impact the difficulty of the dungeons and result in a harder game where the possibilities to switch your difficulty settings in-game should be mandatory. This in contrast to most Zelda games where there have only been one difficulty in your first playthrough, and it was first when you finished your first quest that you unlocked Hero Mode. The only notable exceptions from this rule have been Wind Waker HD. It also differs in terms of the traditional approach where you have progressed in chronological order from easy to more and more challenging dungeons. Just imagine having an equal amount of brilliant dungeons that are not held back due to the current stage you are in the game, but make the entrance to these more challenging, implying that the overworld should not be an empty shell but be filled with enemy encounters and points of interest. The higher the difficulty setting, the more enemies and more durable and intelligent enemies will appear. It will be truly awesome to partially build on the basis of the original Legend of Zelda, deliver a demanding but at the same time rewarding gaming experience.
Zelda Wii U is thankfully not a remake, or at least not a complete one due to Epona and some other details. But this does not make the game any less of a spiritual successor to the original, and coincidentally, due to the delay of Zelda U until next year, it will arrive just in time for the 30th anniversary. It appears that Shigeru Miyamoto's ambition to recreate his childhood experience of exploring Kyoto's countryside and caverns or caves will fully come into fruition and be the next for the franchise that he invented. Thankfully, the fully open, unbound and 3D overworld will finally come into fruition with Zelda Wii U. Gladly, series producer Eiji Aonuma shares this point of view and opinion with Miyamoto, and while he's not recreating exactly the same game, he and his team is implementing the strongest assets from it and combining it with other games across the series' 30 years long history. Our most beloved game franchise is in a long needed transition phase, but from what we've seen and heard about the game to this point, it appears that this will be a successful evolution of the series. And remember, the end of the Ocarina chapter or era in The Legend of Zelda marks for the beginning of a completely new and exciting chapter that will be started by Zelda Wii U.
Girls and guys, that is a wrap. Thank you so much to all of you for watching the second season of Zelda Unknown and for the support you have given me this fall. Special thanks goes to Dr. Wily, Zelda Conqueror, Game Over Jesse and Zeltik for collaborations this season. Seriously, go and check out their channels. In terms of the third season of Zelda Unknown, I want to make it, but first when more information about the provinces in Zelda U surfaces. But do not worry. I can here promise you that this series will return at some point in 2016. Even so, this is merely the beginning for all the Zelda Wii U content that you will see on this channel from December and onwards, all the way to the release of the landmark title and far beyond. And just to give a little hint, we are talking about a completely new, in-depth Zelda Wii U series that will premiere after the Game Awards. Since with 10,000 subscribers on the horizon, we now look into the marvelous future and think about how the upcoming 2 new series in 2016 could be even better than what this channel have offered to this point. Should we hire custom-picked voice actors, obtain better equipment, perhaps new editing software? Well, the truth is that this will not come by itself. That is why the rebranding with new logo and intros in January will be marked with the launch of a Patreon account to simply make the content at this channel superb and the uploads more frequent. And if you wanted, there's more in store already this week since I'm joined by the King of Hype HMK for a Zelda Wii U Black Friday special. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Until then, this was the Commonwealth Realm, and we'll see you girls and guys soon.
Hey folks, this is Zeltik. It was awesome to make this video for all of you, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you're hungry for some more Zelda content, then jump over to my channel to see my take on what Zelda Wii U could take from the original. Thanks for watching.